New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys. This is 3.5 in favor of the Cowboys. 37.5 is our total. So, Mo, when this line hit, I instantly played the Cowboys because Tommy DeVito, in my opinion, is the worst quarterback in the NFL. If you go back to last season and we start to look at all the quarterbacks that have played at least 200 plays in the NFL, there are 41 qualifiers. And Tommy DeVito's 39th out of 41 in EPA CPOE composite, ahead of only Zach Wilson and Bailey Zappi, if that tells you anything. Like, I was like, okay, I will bet against Tommy DeVito till the cows come home. And then they throw me a curveball, and they're like, oh, he might not play. And so, it might be Drew Lock, which makes this bet, like, completely different, because I think Drew Lock is probably exponentially better than Tommy DeVito. So my whole handicap of this game, which is as bad as the Cowboys are, I will just play against Tommy DeVito because he's terrible, is out the window unless he actually does start in this game. So what is your feel for that situation? How do you look at this one? What do you see here?
Yeah, I like the Giants.
Yeah.
Partially for that reason.
Yeah.
My feeling is he's not going to go. And we talked about DeVito last week, and we were dead on that one. Yeah, the Bucs should have probably been like minus 14.5.
Yeah.
But this is much different if Drew Lock can play something like he played in Seattle.
Right.
I mean,
he has a pulse at least, right?
Kind of the question here, though. Yeah. Like, reports were that he was like pretty terrible in practice and in the preseason. So maybe he's not a good fit for this Giants offense. Maybe Brian Daboll doesn't like him for whatever reason. But at the same time, I feel like they just have to get behind him if he's the last healthy quarterback, you know? And if they have to get behind him and build the offense around him a little bit this week, I feel like they could have some success against a Dallas defense that's really hurting, especially in the secondary. I don't think Trayvon Diggs has practiced this week. So you have a matchup nightmare there with nobody who can guard Malik Neighbors and a quarterback who, unlike last week, we talked about this, might actually be able to get Malik Neighbors the ball. So I think I'm going to unfortunately play the Giants at 3.5. I'm not positive the Cowboys are even better than the Giants, to be honest with you, as long as they don't have Tommy DeVito at quarterback. So if this is going to be Drew Lock, I do, and you have just matchup edges. I kind of think up front on both sides of the ball, this Dallas offensive line is a train wreck with injuries at this point. Everyone's either hurt. Yeah,
Zach Martin, 2 straight DNPs for them. That's not great, obviously. Jake Ferguson, 2 straight DNPs. He's still in the concussion protocol. Short week, probably not going to make it back. So, like, there are pieces missing on the Dallas side. Trayvon Diggs actually did get back in a limited practice, as did Tyler Smith. So they might get Smith back on the offensive line. They might get Diggs back at corner, but Eric Kendricks now is 2 straight DNPs for the Cowboys as well. So he might not play at the linebacker position. So there's all kinds of stuff going on with this one. This is going to be a cash out for me if Drew Lock ends up playing, because then the handicap, like I said, is just completely out the window. One bet that I did make as well in conjunction with all of this, it really isn't dependent necessarily on who plays quarterback for the Giants. It's just CeeDee Lamb over 6.5 receptions at plus 110. We're actually getting plus money on that. The Giants are dead last DVOA versus wide receiver ones, and Cooper Rush targeted him 12 times last week against the Washington Commanders, who are 3rd worst against wide receiver ones. And so we're actually getting a team that's worse than them, and he targeted them 12 times. So if we're getting anywhere in the neighborhood of that at all again, which why wouldn't you? He's the best player on the field. So why wouldn't you just go ahead? And if you looked and watched that game, they were pretty high percentage throws as well to CeeDee Lamb. Like, it wasn't like he was bombing it down the field to him. There was a lot of stuff that was fairly close to the line of scrimmage. And so at plus money to me, because I had this like kind of right at 8 receptions as it was anyway. So I liked this a lot. So I played the plus 110 on over 6.5 receptions for CeeDee Lamb in this one. Do you buy into any of the like Malik Neighbors squeaky wheel stuff? Because, I mean, obviously he goes on the rant about not getting the ball and all this stuff and all that. I mean, if we do get Drew Lock under center, I mean, like we said, we both feel like he's a much more competent quarterback than Tommy DeVito. It seems like if you're Brian Daboll and you're trying to save your job and your 1st round draft pick is coming out saying that you're like really blowing it, that Wouldn't you like scheme up some stuff for him? It seems like.
Yeah, I do buy into it. Especially like you said, with a quarterback who is maybe more capable of taking advantage of some of his strengths, and the CeeDee Lamb stuff is a concern for me, obviously. On the Giants side, they don't really have anybody who can match up with him. We saw that last time these two teams played. But I think losing Ferguson hurts here.
Yep.
Most likely. Just more defensive attention they can devote to him. The other big matchup, I think, for the Cowboys, obviously, is Micah Parsons facing off against a backup left tackle or, whatever they have left at right tackle, which I don't think is much. So that could be very ugly with a backup quarterback back there. So, yeah, we could see a lot of big plays on both sides in this game, to be honest. So maybe get your live betting ready because there's going to be some swings here. But overall, I just don't know if I can get the Cowboys out to 3.5 here in a spot where Cooper Rush is probably going to be under some pressure. We saw him just absolute check down wizard against the Eagles when he couldn't set his feet in the pocket. I don't know if he threw the ball past the sticks that entire game. So I think we could see something similar here where you do have a Giants line that does get pressure. I think they're top 5 in adjusted sack rate, top 5 in blitz rate. So that's the one thing they can do, and I don't think Cooper Rush can operate under pressure. We saw that. Basically, they did nothing on offense against Eagles or Texans, and then they play a Commanders team that is atrocious on defense talent-wise. They do scheme some stuff up, but once that sort of thing went away where the other team was just blowing up Dallas's offensive line, Cooper Rush was able to move the ball and score some points, but this might go back to how it was before.